Bridging the Gap, A Journey to Inclusion. As the flagship initiative of the European Union, EU, for the inclusion of persons with disabilities in development cooperation, Bridging the Gap has worked at the global level and in 5 countries, Burkina Faso, Ecuador, Ethiopia, Paraguay and Sudan, to increase the capacity of public institutions to deliver inclusive and accessible sectoral public policies and services, reinforce the capacity of organisations of persons with disabilities, OPDs, to advocate for their rights and enhance disability mainstreaming in international cooperation. What has Bridging the Gap achieved? Let's have a look back over the past 4 years. Burkina Faso, SDG 3, Good Health and Wellbeing. In the West African country, Bridging the Gap has supported the National Intersectoral Council for the Protection and Promotion of Persons with Disabilities, the Ministry of Health and the National Organisations of Persons with Disabilities to begin an upgraded phase of inclusive policies sealed in the new project-backed national strategy for the inclusion of persons of disabilities and in its action plan. In addition to specific trainings addressed to 69 regional disability focal points and over 30 high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Health, Bridging the Gap has worked with the national OPDs to increase knowledge on access to health services, with particular attention to women with disabilities. Ecuador SDG 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Bridging the Gap has promoted the design and implementation of inclusive education policies in Ecuador in collaboration with the National Federations of Persons with Disabilities, the National Committee for the Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities, and the Ministry of Education. Besides facilitating the production of inclusive education material for children with disabilities of primary schools, the project has ensured its mainstreaming into the National Policy of Public Education, brokering a dedicated Memorandum of Understanding between the government and the civil society, trained over 1,000 teachers, and promoted awareness raising on inclusion in the Ecuadorian society. Ethiopia SDG 8 promotes sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. In Ethiopia, Bridging the Gap supported social protection and livelihoods by infusing knowledge on inclusion in already existing resilience building programs, establishing solid links with external stakeholders and building up a culture of disability mainstreaming. While backing the Federal Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs in its steps towards the new Disability Inclusion Act, the project has trained over 300 officials from federal and regional ministries, as well as from development cooperation partners such as the World Food Programme, UNICEF, the European Union Delegation, and the Austrian Development Agency, paying particular attention to building on the leadership role of women with disabilities. Paraguay SDG 17, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalise the global partnership for sustainable development. Bridging the Gap has represented an important turning point in Paraguay in the defence and promotion of the rights of persons with disabilities, having managed to capture and integrate the needs of OPDs and public institutions by enhancing a better understanding of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, as well as fully participatory management and decision-making processes. The innovative nature and comprehensive scope of the indicators for the implementation and monitoring of the National Action Plan for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities can generate an impact of enormous scope. In addition, Bridging the Gap has been instrumental to the overall strengthening of SENADIS as the public body in charge of upholding disability rights. Sudan SDG 8 promotes sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Bringing a contribution of Sudan's historical phase of democratic transition, Bridging the Gap has become a relevant project for the country in its entirety, not only for Sudanese with disabilities. the creation of the group of Friends of Persons with Disabilities, the support to the 10-year CRPD report and the new Disability Act, or the empowerment of organisations of persons with disabilities through sub-grants and vocational education and training are vivid examples of the path towards inclusive employment policies. With dedicated attention to the inclusion of women with disabilities, the project has directly contributed to the community inclusion of almost 1,000 Sudanese with disabilities who have now increased access to the job market. SDGs 1, 2, 5, 10, 16 and 17. Bridging the Gap's contribution to the global agenda. Bridging the Gap has established strong synergies with UN actors, other EU-funded initiatives, the Global Action on Disability Network and international NGOs, thus reinforcing the project's contribution to disability inclusive development and key EU policy documents. Overall, the project has organised 52 global workshops, webinars and trainings with around 2,000 participants in total, launched 10 communication and visibility initiatives, having gathered almost 600 people, published 41 documents, and established important synergies with other EU and implementing partners programmes. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, Bridging the Gap has also adapted to its work style and work plan to guarantee an inclusive, rights-based response to the pandemic. And now, what's next? Ensuring sustainability and ownership of the project results is paramount to continue on the path to inclusion. Building upon the Bridging the Gap experience is a shared responsibility of public institutions, civil society and international cooperation practitioners. Only together we can turn the 2030 Agenda and the CRPD into reality. The Bridging the Gap journey ends here. Thank you for being at our side during these amazing 4 years. This video was produced with the financial support of the European Union. Its contents are the sole responsibility of Bridging the Gap and do not necessarily reflect the views of the European Union.